It's called Super News, and it's described as a weekly newsletter by Timothy Shagwa, Superintendent of Schools, to share his thoughts and vision for education in Beaumont ISD. KFDM's Justin Hinton has been digging into the newsletter and has found some things don't add up.
Kelly, to be clear, we're not quite sure if Dr. Shagwa writes these notes himself. Now, they are signed by him and come from his desk, but we asked the communication specialist for the district who writes them, and we were not given an answer. But we found whoever writes them, whether it's Dr. Shagwa or someone else, well, they might be getting a little help. Each week, a new message, straight from the desk of Dr. Timothy Shagwa, Super News. The Veterans Day message caught our eye, especially with the line highlighted in green. Let us remember not only those brave men and women in uniform and the healthy, proud alumni of military service, but also the forgotten soldiers among us, the less fortunate who have returned from service with much less than they took along. We headed to Google and found the direct quote from the Bradenton Times out of Florida. We contacted the author, who responded via email saying, quote, "Wow, that sentence certainly is word for word the same as mine. It is a somewhat broad and perhaps even generic sentiment that fits with the rest of his message, so I suppose it's not outside the realm of possibilities that it was a coincidence. But the use of the hyphen to emphasize such clauses is sort of a trademark in my writing that you'll even see appear elsewhere in my article. That's probably the part that raises the biggest flag to me, though I don't know that I'd still completely rule out an unlikely coincidence, unless maybe some of the other parts look to be lifted from elsewhere." Turns out, the rest of the article can be found on the Georgia Department of Veterans Service page, dated November 8th and signed by Commissioner Pete Wheeler. Dr. Jim Sanderson, the chair of the Department of English and Modern Language at Lamar University, says it appears to be a sign of plagiarism.
Plagiarism is taking either oral or written material that is not your own and passing it off as your own.
But the Veterans Day message wasn't the only one where we found similar statements. September 9th, a message about the September 11th terrorist attack, found on history.com. October 1st, a message about anti-bullying. A direct quote stated by the director of the center, used without quotes. We found that on pacer.org. And again, another letter dated September 16th about National Hispanic Heritage Month. Appears word for word on the Library of Congress's website.
The odds of his writing this exactly with the same structure, the same punctuation, the same wording as this, without having seen this, is pretty close to the definition of a miracle.
After visiting with Dr. Sanderson, he did say there is a proper way to make citations. He said in particular, on the anti-bullying message, the author could have used quotes to denote the comments were made by someone else. Now, history.com also has a section that outlines how to cite certain material. That information can be found under the frequently asked questions section. Now, we reached out to Dr. Shagwa, his secretary, and two communication specialists in the administration office, Ron Reynolds and Nikisha Miles, for comment. None of them responded. Live in the studio, Justin Hinton, 6 News Tonight.
We want to start tonight with an update on a story that we brought you yesterday about possible plagiarism in Beaumont School District newsletters called Super News. KFDM's Justin Hinton broke the story and joins us live in the studio with new developments. Justin?
Kelly, the first thing we should note is Super News is no longer available to the public through the district website. We tried clicking the link on the district's webpage and it does not bring up the site for the newsletter. Also, we've learned Superintendent Dr. Timothy Shagwa sent an email to the Board of Trustees apologizing. Now, in his email, he says, quote, "It has come to my attention that some of the information in my Super News may not be original. I believe there was no intent to deceive, but to expeditiously bring clarity to some important topics of concern. Every opportunity to cite and give credit to their work and to bring worthiness of the topic should have been given and made. In no way am I trying to explain away an error, as I have often stated. I have to hold myself accountable to every word and to a higher standard." He goes on to say that this should never, in all capital letters, have happened, and ultimately, with my signature, I am responsible. I deeply apologize and will ensure that it does not happen again. Now, this is only a portion of that email. To read it in its entirety, you can visit our website. Now, I also spoke with Board President Gwen Ambers by phone. She told us, quote, "We feel it is inappropriate behavior and we don't condone that behavior." She went on to say that the behavior has been dealt with by Dr. Shagwa, but would not go into details as to how, saying it is a personnel matter. But questions do still remain as to who writes the newsletter. Our questions still have not been answered by members of the communications department. We were told to submit our questions to them and that we would receive an answer. We are still waiting for an answer. Now, communications specialist Ron Reynolds did confirm, however, that he is not the author. Kelly?